in the grand conclave of galactic civilization, where thousands of species sat in harmony, at least on the surface, a vote was called unlike any before. The Chamber of Stars, a circular structure suspended within a rotating ring above the gas. Giant Moltar was filled with voices, some soft and logical, others deep and warlike, but nearly all in agreement for once. At the center floated the subject of the vote, Earth, a backwater planet, wild and unpredictable, home to a young species called humans. Their rapid growth, stubborn attitude, and refusal to bow to the larger powers had stirred frustration. Across the stars, their language was strange, their emotions too raw, their societies chaotic. But the final spark came after a human ship destroyed a much older alien warship in a battle it should have lost. Now, the ruling species claimed Earth was dangerous, rebellious, and must be guided. The vote was called the Peaceful Enslavement Resolution, though everyone knew what it really meant. The final count? Unanimous. Every species voted to enslave Earth. The decision was delivered by the Chancellor of the Union, a crystalline being named Vriss Khan. It floated above the assembly, its voice like chimes mixed with lightning. For the balance of the galaxy, it said, Earth will be occupied and its people restructured. Their leadership shall be removed, their technology restricted, for their own good and ours. Across the galaxy, plans went into motion. Invasions were drafted. Chains were forged, both literal and political. Massive fleets gathered, not to destroy but to conquer and control. It was to be quick, clean, efficient. A dozen systems sent, their finest troops. The Empire of Solari offered mind-control drones. The Junari brought soul wares, tools that drained rebellion from any creature. And the Zavarans, masters of memory, came ready to rewrite the very thoughts of humankind. They were proud. They were united. They were prepared for everything. Everything. Except what Earth did next. The fleets reached Earth's system with confidence, cloaked in pride and technology far beyond what humans were supposed to possess. They expected chaos on Earth, perhaps a few nations surrendering immediately, maybe some confusion, protests, or panic. Instead, the first wave of invaders didn't find resistance. They found nothing. The skies above Earth were eerily quiet. No nuclear warheads launched, no warnings sent. The humans simply vanished, or so it seemed. Troop carriers landed in major cities, expecting to march through burning ruins or frightened crowds. Instead, they found streets abandoned, machines idle, and screens playing strange music. One battalion landed in what they thought was an empty base only to trigger a sound trap that played Never Gonna Give You Up at ear-splitting volume. The soldiers were confused. Then came the drones. Not military drones, but clouds of tiny, insect-sized machines that swarmed silently and disappeared after leaving behind an oily, invisible mark. Within hours, the invaders began to feel strange. Their weapons misfired. Their ships shut down. Mid-air. One by one, the greatest technologies in the galaxy began to fail, as if Earth had rewritten the rules of the battlefield. And yet, no humans had fired a single shot. No armies had appeared. The invaders, expecting conquest, found themselves inside a silent trap. Somewhere deep underground, hidden from every scanner, the humans were watching in a dark room beneath. What used to be the Colorado Rockies, Earth's true response began. It wasn't led by generals, not just scientists. It was a mix of minds engineers, survivalists, programmers, even comedians and linguists. They didn't think like the rest of the galaxy. They didn't follow old strategies. They believed in confusion as a weapon, unpredictability as a shield. And most of all, they were angry. Earth had listened to the vote. They had heard the laughter in the assembly, as civilizations decided their fate. They remembered every insult, every time someone called them too wild, too emotional, too primitive. So Earth did what it had always done best. It took the hit and stood back up swinging, using stolen data from alien tech human engineers had. Quietly built what they called the Mirage Field. It made human cities vanish from sensors, made weapons jam, sent back false signals. What the invaders saw was a ghost of Earth. What they didn't see were the real humans, hidden deep, building, planning, waiting. Then the counterattack began. Not with missiles or plasma fire, but with control. One by one, ships started turning on their own fleets. Codes were rewritten. AI minds were infected with Earth humor, so deeply that one warship simply refused to obey orders, choosing instead to sing sea shanties. Entire battalions lost connection with their motherships. Others began hallucinating, not from poison, but from hacked neural translators. A Xaveran fleet commander found herself screaming orders in perfect Shakespearean English and quoting Earth poetry instead of tactical commands. The galaxy had underestimated Earth not because it was weak, but because it had never needed anyone. Because no species had ever grown so quickly under such pressure. Because humans didn't just adapt, they improvised. The war turned without a single Earth soldier being seen. The invaders began to retreat, but they couldn't. Their ships refused them. Their leaders went silent. Something terrible began to grow behind the silence of Earth. A force not of weapons or war, but of will. And worst of all, the invaders began to realize they hadn't enslaved Earth. They had awakened it. The skies above Earth, once crowded with the pride of the galactic powers, had turned into a graveyard of silent ships. Their blinking lights faded one by one as systems failed. Weapon banks emptied without firing, and power cores began to shut down without warning. No explosions, no battle cries, just silence and confusion. The Solari War cruisers, once famous for bending planets to their knees, hovered uselessly above the continents, their crews trapped inside with air thinning slowly and lights flickering like dying stars. The once proud Junari Solwayers floated near the atmosphere in frozen stasis, their control systems locked into endless loops of Earth-language riddles they could not solve. One of them, unable to answer a riddle sent from a hacked satellite, shut down completely after repeating, "What walks on 4 legs in the morning?" over 4,000 times. Below them, the Earth remained eerily calm, as if mocking their presence. Deep underground, inside a facility once known only to a handful of human nations, the command center watched everything unfold in real time. They didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. They simply waited. Earth had been underestimated for the last time. On one of the massive monitors, a live feed showed an alien commander pounding on a locked blast door in his own ship, screaming in a language no longer recognized by his translator. Behind him, graffiti had somehow appeared across the walls of his ship. Bold letters in human script reading, "You shouldn't have voted so fast." Across hundreds of control centers, human engineers and AI specialists monitored systems, deploying calculated interference with surgical precision. They had learned quickly absorbing alien tech, breaking it, improving it, and bending it back against those who brought it. What shocked the galaxy most wasn't how Earth defended itself. It was how Earth refused to play the same game. There was no massive counterattack, no armies marching through the wreckage. Humans didn't send messages asking for peace. They didn't respond at all. And that silence was terrifying. One by one, the species involved in the peaceful enslavement vote realized they had made a mistake. The first to panic were the Grenthal, whose fleet vanished over the Pacific without a trace. No explosions, no distress calls. Just gone. The second were the Scathi, who began broadcasting desperate apologies in every known language, promising reparations and retreat. Their message, intercepted and rebroadcast globally by Earth's satellites, ended with a single human reply in a calm, computerized voice. Too late. In the Grand Conclave, where the vote had been cast with laughter and arrogance, silence fell like a curtain. The holographic chamber, once filled with pride, now echoed with whispers of fear. One delegate after another requested emergency meetings, trying to undo what had been done. But the problem was not the vote, it was the result. Earth had been told it would be enslaved. Instead, Earth had proven that it could reach into the heart of every invading fleet without ever leaving its soil. Systems that had taken centuries to build were undone in hours. Alien AI cores were corrupted with human games, riddles, jokes, and strange logic puzzles. A Craveran weapons platform was discovered spinning helplessly in orbit, locked into an endless loop of Earth's national anthems playing at random. When approached by another ship, it screamed freedom in at least 5 languages before, exploding into confetti. One desperate species tried to retreat. The Vulcan hive, known for erasing civilizations with biological plagues, attempted to recall their spores. But Earth's atmosphere had already adapted. Human scientists had released modified bacteria into the upper layers of the sky, not to kill, but to rewrite alien organisms on entry. Every plague spore turned into harmless pollen. Flowers bloomed in the air where death was meant to fall. Earth had not only defended itself, it had rewritten the rules of the war. Again, without firing a single weapon, the turning point came, when Earth's signal finally and deliberately was sent back to the galaxy. A simple message, just 10 words, no threats, no fury, no long speeches. It said, "We watched you vote. Now we cast our own." It was accompanied by coordinates, strange ones. Deep space, empty and quiet, far from any known system. Still, the galaxy's most powerful leaders sent probes. What they found left them cold. A massive human satellite array, hidden for decades, powered by fusion and Earth-made quantum links. Around it were captured alien vessels abandoned, but alive, retrofitted, and glowing with new energy. Earth had been building a fleet in secret, not for defense, for something else. The signal was clear. Earth was not just awake. Earth was reaching out. Now, the species that once voted to enslave. Earth were the ones sending messages every hour, offering peace, trade, alliance, anything to stop what they now feared. The galaxy had seen this kind of response only once before long ago, during the rise of the ancient airliths. But even the airliths did not win without fighting. Earth, it seemed, would not need to fire at all. Because now, the other species were not standing against humanity. They were begging. The Grand Conclave held an emergency session. Every species returned to their seats, heads lowered, pride broken. The Chancellor called the floor to order. But before a word could be spoken, every screen in the chamber turned black, then lit up with the face of a human woman, sitting calmly at a table, her expression unreadable. She introduced herself simply, Commander Reyes, Earth Defense Coordination. Her voice was quiet, but the entire chamber listened like it was thunder. "We have received your messages," she said. "We understand your regret, but you need to understand something in return. We are not angry." She leaned forward. "We are not afraid. We have never been." A pause. Then the final line. "We just wanted to see what you would do if you thought we were weak." The chamber froze. She smiled and cut the feed. Across the stars, fear took the place where arrogance once ruled. The galactic civilizations who had laughed during the vote to enslave Earth now watched in dread as the consequences unfolded. Planets that had been untouched for thousands of years began to change, not because of attacks, not because of weapons, but because Earth had spoken. And when Earth speaks, It doesn't raise its voice. It simply acts in ways that no one expects. The satellite array discovered in the far quadrant, the one laced with human modifications and broken alien ships, had now begun to pulse. Each signal from it was a vote, not a request, not a plea, but a clear decision being broadcast across the stars. Every message had a target, not to destroy, not to invade, but to reveal. One by one, Earth began exposing secrets that the most powerful species had buried for centuries. The first to fall were the Neurothar, whose public face was peace and law, but who had secretly fueled black market slave colonies across 3 sectors. Earth's AI systems, fed with trillions of intercepted messages and translated documents, revealed the full history of those crimes in an unstoppable wave of data. Across the galaxy, revolts broke out on Neurothar-controlled worlds. Slaves turned on their masters. Soldiers refused orders. 100 worlds seceded overnight. And Earth had done it with nothing more than truth. One by one, other species panicked. What did Earth know about them? How much of their dirty past had been recorded by human satellites, scanned by probes hidden in comets, or gathered by Earth's AI crawlers that had been quietly feeding on galactic data networks for years? Inside Earth's Central Command, Commander Reyes stood in a chamber filled with glowing holograms, each one showing another system, another reaction, another confession. Around her were Earth's greatest minds, not warriors, not politicians, but builders, thinkers, artists, and programmers. The Earth Defense Coordination wasn't just about protecting the planet anymore. It was now the steering wheel for a species that had become something the galaxy had never seen before. A reckoning wrapped in politeness. Reyes did not celebrate. She simply pointed to the next target. They enslaved our name, she said. Now we free their truths. Back in the Grand Conclave, fear turned into desperation. Delegates once proud of their control now begged for discussions, peace talks, anything that might stop what Earth had started. But Earth sent no ambassadors. It sent no conditions. Instead, it sent results. The Solari, the ones who had offered. The mind control drones during the vote now found their homeworld systems infected with digital viruses disguised as cultural broadcasts. The drones began to play old Earth speeches, music, and even movies. But they didn't stop. They kept repeating, louder and louder. When Solari leaders tried to shut them down, the drones projected a single message across every screen. You wanted control? Now you must listen. And still, no human soldier appeared. No warship flew. Earth didn't have to invade. It just turned the systems of its enemies against themselves. AI cores surrendered. Automated ships switched allegiance. Entire fleets refused orders when Earth's code was detected in their systems. Across the stars, civilizations began to turn inward, afraid not of human weapons, but of what else they had hidden that might now be exposed. No one knew how Earth had moved so fast. No one knew how a species so young had learned to use information, not just as a shield, but as a blade. Then came the shift. A minor species, the Ratari, once silent during the vote, stepped forward with a message. They broadcast it publicly, not to Earth, but to the rest of the galaxy. Their leader, a thin, gray-eyed creature named Alven, stood alone and said, "We were wrong. We believed the vote would protect us. We now see it doomed us. Earth is not to be enslaved. Earth is to be respected." It was the first formal apology given, and Earth responded not with silence this time, but with a gift. A beam of data descended upon the Ratari capital, containing blueprints to fix their failing weather system, something they had tried to solve for centuries. No message, no demands. Just help dot, and suddenly the galaxy saw a new shape to Earth's power. Not just revenge. Not just retaliation. Choice. Earth was choosing who to forgive, who to assist, who to uplift. It was no longer a planet. It had become a force. The kind that punishes with truth, but heals with mercy. The kind that doesn't start wars, but finishes them with facts. Some species began turning on each other. Accusations flew in the conclave. Who had first suggested the vote? Who had pushed for occupation? Who had laughed the loudest? 1,000. Fingers pointed. Old allies became enemies. Earth said nothing. It didn't have to. Every fight, every whisper, every panicked transmission was captured and logged. Humanity was listening. It had learned that in a galaxy of liars, listeners held the real power. Then came the second broadcast. Earth's voice returned to the stars. This time it wasn't Ray's. It was a child. No name given. Just a young human reading a message. Perfect galactic standard. We don't want to rule. We don't want to punish. But we will never be controlled. You tried to chain us. Now you've only unchained our reach. That line echoed in every corner of the galaxy. Earth's ships finally peered, but not over enemy worlds. They floated in neutral zones, above broken planets and ruined systems left behind by other empires. And from them, human aid teams descended not as soldiers, but as healers, engineers, farmers, doctors. They helped those no one else would. Even species that had voted against Earth now found human hands fixing their machines, planting there. Fields, cleaning their water. And yet, they were afraid. Because every gift came with the same message, printed in simple Earth script. We remember your vote. We choose to forgive. Do not forget again. The stars had never looked the same since Earth rose. Across the spiral arms of the galaxy, ancient empires once feared, now looked over their shoulders, worried not about missiles or fleets, but messages. Earth's silence was gone, replaced by careful actions and quiet broadcasts that hit harder than any weapon. Where once came threats, now came a lesson. Where once there was laughter at humanity's supposed weakness, now there was a trembling awareness that mercy wasn't Earth's surrender, it was a test. A test to see who understood. That survival wasn't just about power, it was about choice. And many failed it again. Among them were the Javerins. After pretending to apologize for their role in the vote, they quietly began rebuilding their Black Ops fleet, hidden beneath one of their moons. They thought Earth wouldn't notice. But Earth had eyes everywhere, now satellites disguised as space dust, data beams encoded in old transmissions, AI listening quietly inside stolen alien code. Earth saw everything, and it responded not with destruction, but with revelation. Every government transmission, every secret plan, every word spoken in private meetings about attacking Earth again was leaked, not by Earth, but anonymously across galactic networks. Within hours, the Xaveran people turned against their own leaders. Civil war broke out. Earth had not fired a shot, but it had ended a fleet before it was built. Elsewhere, species tried to buy Earth's silence. Bribes were offered: technology, planets, influence in the conclave. Earth refused it all. Humans didn't want control. They wanted understanding. But if understanding couldn't be reached, Earth would make itself too powerful to be ignored again. The galaxy began to change, slowly but clearly. Old alliances broke down. The conclave became quieter. Fewer species dared speak loudly without watching the shadows. Delegates avoided looking at the seat. Earth refused to occupy the seat left. Deliberately empty, as a reminder. Earth didn't sit at the table anymore. It had moved beyond a dot in this silence. The smaller races began to rise. Species ignored for millennia: farmers, artists, thinkers. Dreamers started sending messages to Earth, not in fear, but in admiration. You did not bend, they said. You helped us when no one else would. And Earth answered with tools. Schools, medicine, and knowledge, not to gain territory, not to demand loyalty, but to prove that its mercy was not weakness, it was power under control, and those who respected it were raised alongside it. But not everyone learned. The Gorthai Dominion, once proud rulers of 6 star systems, saw Earth's rise as an insult to tradition. They gathered what was left of their army, declared Earth's mercy a trick, and prepared for war. They announced publicly that they would strike Earth directly, to teach the humans humility. Their ships moved quickly old, but still dangerous. Their weapon systems activated, aimed at the edge of Earth's system. Earth waited, did not fire, did not flee. Then the stars blinked. Not exploded. Not darkened. Blinked. Gorthai ships vanished one by one, not destroyed, just gone. Sensors found nothing. No wreckage, no energy trails. Panic spread across the Gorthai homeworld. Then, a single message arrived. It contained no threats, no demands. Just the coordinates of their fleet, found drifting in perfect orbit around a planet far beyond the edge of any star chart. The fleet had been teleported by technology the Gorthai didn't even believe humans had. The ships were untouched, the crews unharmed. But the message attached to the coordinates said, "Next time, we won't give them back." That day, the Gorthai surrendered not to humans, but to the truth. Earth wasn't weak. Earth was awake. And it didn't need armies to win. It needed only understanding and the courage to act when no one else dared. In the deepest chambers of the Grand Conclave, fear had turned to shame. The same delegates who once voted to enslave Earth now whispered about how to ask for Earth's guidance. The Chancellor, once the symbol of unity, finally spoke publicly again. But this time, her voice was heavy. "We judged a young world," she said. "We sought to control it. But now we understand. Earth has become what we all feared a leader." And that terrified them most, not because Earth wanted to conquer, but because it didn't. It had no desire to rewrite the laws of the galaxy. It didn't want tribute or thrones or crowns. It wanted to be left alone, respected, and maybe even understood. And now, every system that once tried to chain Earth was asking a question they had never expected to face. What if Earth never forgives us? Because the humans were kind, yes. They had shown mercy where others would have brought fire. But kindness wasn't the same as forgetting. Mercy wasn't weakness. It was warning. And some were starting to fear that the next time someone made Earth angry, there would be no warning at all. And somewhere deep within Earth's command, in a quiet room beneath layers of rock and shielding, Commander Reyes reviewed the last message received from a distant system. It was simple. A single alien leader had sent it, trembling with guilt and fear. "What do you want from us?" Reyes leaned back, eyes closed for a long time. Then she stood, turned to her advisors, and sighed, "Prepare the final message." Across the galaxy, every system held its breath. The same stars that had once been witnesses to the vote that almost broke a world now watched in silence as the consequences came full circle. Species that had ruled for thousands of years, voices that had echoed with pride in the Grand Conclave, now whispered only one question: what does Earth want? They had waited for fire. They had prepared for war. But war had never come. Instead, Earth responded with silence, logic, and mercy that felt heavier than violence. And now, as a single transmission prepared to travel through every corner of the known universe, the galaxy waited to see whether it was a judgment, a declaration, or a sentence. Beneath the Earth's crust, far below any satellite or scanner, a room filled with glowing light came alive. Holograms shimmered above tables shaped like continents, and screens tracked every incoming signal. In the center stood Commander Rias, surrounded not by generals or soldiers, but by historians, engineers, poets, and scientists. The team that had led Earth through its greatest test had no need for medals. They had seen something bigger, something most species still didn't understand. The galaxy was not ruled by weapons. It was shaped by ideas. And Earth's idea of freedom, resilience, and dignity had become stronger than any laser. Commander Reyes gave the signal. The message was ready. Not one of conquest, not one of surrender, but one of truth. As it began to transmit, every planet, every station, and every fleet paused. The skies filled with the voice of a child once again gentle, clear, and impossible to ignore. To the galaxy that judged us, you saw our noise, you saw our speed, you saw our flaws, and you feared what we might become. So you voted to break. U.S., you voted to put us in chains, but you never asked why we climbed so fast, why we built without sleep, why we smiled even in pain. You saw us as dangerous. But we were only determined. Now you ask what we want. We want to be left alone. We want peace, not just for ourselves, but for those like us, for the weak, for the ignored. We want a galaxy where no one votes to enslave another. You feared our anger, but it's our forgiveness you should fear more, because mercy is a power you never understood, and we remember everything. The message ended with no threats, no list of demands, just a symbol. The Earth, glowing in blue, surrounded by rings of light, a sign that Earth had moved beyond fear, beyond war. But the message did more than just speak. It shifted the stars themselves. Within days, systems that had once obeyed ancient powers began to change direction. Smaller worlds that had once begged for inclusion in great empires now reached out to Earth. They didn't want to serve. They wanted to learn. They wanted to join a future that didn't rely on conquest or hierarchy. And Earth welcomed them not as rulers, but as equals. 1,000 new alliances were born not from treaties, but from inspiration. Earth's philosophies, art, music, and language began to spread faster than any ship. Alien children sang Earth. Songs in schools built with human blueprints. Former enemies requested human educators, scientists, and thinkers to help rebuild what centuries of oppression had broken. And across it all, Earth watched, quietly, patiently. No throne, no empire, just presence. Unshakable and undeniable, but not all accepted the message. A small number of systems still held on to old pride, whispering of resistance, planning revenge in secret. But Earth did not respond with fear. It did not return to its bunkers or call back its fleets. It let them whisper. It let them plan. And when one of them, the last warlord of a crumbling empire, finally launched a single strike toward the edge of Earth's outer defenses, expecting retaliation, something strange happened. His missile disappeared mid-flight, just vanished from existence. Moments later, a message arrived, directed only to him. It read, "This is your only warning. You may hate us, but you will never hurt us again." And that was all. No fleet came. No cities burned. And yet, within hours, the warlord's own people turned on him, not because Earth attacked, but because they understood the meaning. Earth was untouchable, now not just in strength, but in spirit. A line had been drawn in the sky, and no one dared cross it again. In the Grand Conclave, for the first time in history, the vote that once condemned Earth was struck from the records. Not deleted to hide guilt, but preserved to remind every future generation of the cost of arrogance. A new seat was added, this one permanently empty, surrounded by light. It was not for Earth. Earth did not attend. It never needed to. The seat remained as a symbol, A reminder, a warning. Back on Earth, life returned to its rhythm. The skies were blue, the cities hummed, children laughed. And deep below, the leaders who had saved their world watched quietly as stars changed their course. They had not fought for power. They had fought to be understood. And now, finally, the galaxy had listened. Earth had been voted into chains. But it rose in silence. And when the galaxy begged for mercy, Earth gave it. Not because it had to, but because it chose to.